Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nugget's News. Well, another massive news week, those global news headlines and crypto headlines. We've got plenty to get through as we come towards the end of the year, and we will be taking a little bit of time off this week, and I'm going to do a bit of a rehash of our top interviews. So keep an eye on all our socials for that, because we've produced a lot of content this year, and I know a few of our best podcasts in particular have really snuck under the radar. So give you guys something to consume over that festive period while we do take a break. So we do welcome over 700 new subscribers this week. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and we're going to start off by getting into that local news where Australia did have its hottest ever day on record, with the average temperature across the whole country hitting 40.9. So those fires are still happening. Stay safe out there, and thoughts with all those that are affected. So into the local economy, where this is the new environment, the nightmare week for banks sparks dividend fears. So as I've been saying for some time now, the best is behind them for all the banks. And I think that everyone that's invested for those dividend plays, unfortunately, that is under a lot of pressure now, and people are going to have to look elsewhere as bank profitability is suffering. So the economy is not up to scratch, and Treasury needs to do more. Every week now we're starting to read these headlines from more mainstream sources about the butting of heads between the RBA and the government. So each of them want the other to do more, and I think that's probably the biggest theme that we're watching in 2020, depending on where you want to put your money as well on what happens. So a source of concern, the RBA finally admitting that debt and low wages are hitting shoppers. Even those tax cuts, they haven't been spent. And these are all the things that we've been covering throughout the year. And it is now admittedly a concern of the RBA and other central bankers around the world. So thanks to everyone that got behind this video. That Senate cash hearing did not go to plan. Plenty of views and shares. It really was great, and you guys love having Robbie on the channel. So thanks to everyone that has been sharing that video around. Over to China, where those systemic risks from those debt defaults may be sparking a chain reaction. So top central bank advisors warning about everything that is to come. And if we go to the next story here, $400 billion liquidity hole in January. So this is similar to the US, where we've got these repo markets with the Fed having to step in. It looks like Chinese central bank is going to have to step in, and this is that race to the bottom, global printing, debasing fiat currency, and everything else that's fixed supply, the golds and the bitcoins of the world. I think these assets are going to continue to do really well. So Russia, their sovereign internet, we spoke about this a few weeks ago. They're going to put up a bit of a firewall similar to China from the rest of the world, and that starts on Monday. So if you're in Russia, let us know if you're still going to be able to access YouTube, and if you're going to be affected at all. Russia and Ukraine have put their differences aside to agree on this gas pipeline. So I've spoken about these commodities and energy being the real power play for these countries. And as we see here, often differences are put aside, particularly with European countries in that relationship with Russia in those cold winters where they need that oil and gas to keep the economy going and keep them warm. But obviously the biggest story of the week was Trump getting impeached. So this doesn't mean that anything changes just yet, but obviously this is something that's going to just be all over the headlines as we go forward, and Trump's trying to downplay it. So if you're in the US, let us know what you think about all this in the comments below. Now, Trump has been out busy on Twitter again, urging the Fed to cut rates and launch QE to counter that strong dollar. So the US dollar is just getting too strong compared to all these other emerging market currencies. And it really is just Australia and the US that are the last canaries in the coal mine. Once those two start negative interest rates and printing more money, I think the race is on for people to get their money into gold, Bitcoin, safe haven assets. So the Fed will likely be buying 40% of US Treasury issuance in 2020. So we hear stories about the Bank of Japan that are buying all the new bonds issued, and it's not really spoken about to the degree that the Fed are still really active in these markets. So they tried to unwind the balance sheet. They're already stepping back in. Is modern monetary theory next? Because at the moment it's just issuing bonds and the Fed are buying them and giving you that money anyway. So this is where modern monetary theory and cutting out the middleman and governments just spending, again, that's going to be a big theme for 2020. Now, retail apocalypse, yes, we know that a lot of malls and retail stores have been hit in the US and in Australia throughout this year, but people are moving to that online model. So we still see that in the US, the cleanest dirty shirt in the laundry, as I say, US personal incomes are growing at the fastest pace. So, in Australia, we'd kill for this sort of wage growth. It's just not happening here. So the US is still going along relatively well. Final Q3 GDP, 2.1%, and a lot of that growth coming from the US consumer spending. So they are out there spending, just maybe not in that retail environment. And that sort of tells us that inflation and spending on other things is where they're spending their money. So most Americans lack savings. This is the latest stats. 45% have nothing saved, and then another 24% less than $1,000 for a rainy day. So as you see, when expenses go up only a little bit, all of a sudden this is where people are having to draw on credit cards and other places because they can't keep up with the pace of living. Now, obviously, Fed officials are coming out and saying things like how bad Bitcoin is. 50% of all transactions are associated with illegal activity. I don't know where they plucked these numbers from, but get ready for more attacks on cryptocurrency as central banks have to double down on their monetary policy, and Bitcoin is just the far better option. So this was a fantastic graphic about the inflation rate around the world in different regions. Central banks obviously target 2 to 3% inflation rate. Bitcoin is going to be dropping down less than 2% in the next halving, and all of a sudden it may not be that much more attractive than the Aussie dollar or the US dollar, but just look at this long list of countries around the world that have got far higher inflation. So just mathematically, you're better off being in Bitcoin. Another great graphic, 20 years of price changes around the United States, and some things have definitely got cheaper. Your wireless, your cell phone, those digital items that are now mass produced. But when we actually look at the most common things that people are having to spend money on these days, those real costs of living, that's where people have been hit really hard, and inflation is definitely more than what's reported. I did a video on that recently. So this week we had a shocking admission from one of the Fed presidents saying that we need to be more focused on asset prices, not just the inflation number, for all those reasons that we've been talking about. Real inflation, if we look at the asset prices, is closer to that 8% annually. Now, this is a fantastic website you should all put on your watch list, lmtr.com. They've got some great charts, and this is the amount of money that savers are basically being robbed from negative interest rates, and the projections of different central banks when you look at their yield curve. So they're projecting for things to go more deeply negative into the future. The European Central Bank rate expectation as well. They're basically saying that we're probably not even going to be getting back up into positive territory for 10 or 20 years if these assumptions are right. So if we're staying over in England now, where the Bank of England are admitting that high-frequency traders actually hacked its prefs conferences and got early access to that data. So if you watch the videos I've done about high-frequency trading and the advantage that you can get by having just a millisecond of information before everyone else, this is front-running, this is illegal, and the Bank of England have admitted that they did get hacked and people were profiting off that information being leaked. So the ECB, they want to eliminate the Eurozone's only saving grace. And this was another article on Zero Hedge about the problems that the ECB have faced. In particular, if we go down the route of modern monetary theory, these individual countries in the euro, they can't print money like Australia or America. They're all on these fiscal budgets where Italy and Greece are being told they're not allowed to actually spend more money by the government to get their economy going. So this is a massive problem that they face politically as well as financially. Now, Sweden, 5 years after going negative, they're trying to raise rates. So it happened in Japan. Before you know it, they were back into the negative. Sweden are trying it. We saw the US try to raise rates and they had to do a backflip. It's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out as another country gets out of that negative territory. Is that going to make their currency really attractive compared to their neighbors, and people are going to flood in? Their currency gets too strong. All of a sudden, the central bank has to back off and say, hey, we've got to drop rates and start printing money. We don't want a strong currency. That race to the bottom continues. Now, Italian government had to step in again this week, rescue some bank lenders, $900 million bailout. This just seems to be the norm now. Every week I'm reporting these headlines, whether it's in China, Italy, all throughout Europe. We know those banks are really weak. And I just reported on that article in Australia that the good times are behind the Australian banks as well. French financial watchdog approving the first ICO, and I believe this ICO was actually for an ICO platform. So we might be seeing some more fundraising happening in these countries. I've spoken about this at length about that innovation where struggling countries, they want to point a difference. They want to attract that capital to their economy. So we could at most help for stagnation. Germany is meant to be the powerhouse economy of Europe, but it looks like they're going to be contracting in Q4 as well. This doesn't bode well for that manufacturing, all those things we talk about in terms of the cog of the global economy that Germany and these developing nations really are. But Germany are looking to issue crypto regulations around Jan 1, 2020. So just like we saw in France, manufacturing is down. How else can we get the economy going? Let's make really friendly crypto regulations. And that's where I do worry about Australia a little bit. I think they've really lost their chance there. And we've seen so many startups move over to Southeast Asia. Now, this week, the ECB did announce Eurochain. So this was a white paper. You can have a read through this. Crazy stuff. They're going to be monitoring every transaction you do, but I actually think this is more of a worry for banks and corporations that are doing all the money laundering and dirty tricks, and government are going to be able to monitor everything they do. I think the corporations and banks are going to absolutely hate that. So yes, we do say that this is bad for Bitcoin, but really I think this is a massive use case and gives people reason to learn about Bitcoin and go into Bitcoin because they don't want every single thing they've done and spent money on being used and their data being sold to third parties. Now, Libra have come out with their 2.0 roadmap. So they've cut out a few things in their white paper originally, like that dividend that they were talking about, that node holders were going to make money and the security token would be paying out a % of revenue. So a few conflicting messages. This was something I thought they would have to change, but they're continuing to, I guess, make these little pivots because they received so much pushback initially. Facebook again, ECB, Christine Lagarde coming out and just saying that the sheer following and network that they have is giving them a real unfair advantage in terms of trying to issue some sort of payment system as well. So I just don't think that this is ever going to fully go ahead and gain meaningful traction in any way. Now, Facebook also had the data, the IDs, phone numbers, 267 million users leaked this week. Another huge theme, 2020, 2021, it's going to be all about protecting your data and people waking up to the fact that, their information is probably out there on the net, and now government are monitoring everything you do. There's just no such thing as privacy anymore, and people are getting fed up with it. Now, India become the latest ones to further crack down on banks and customers' deposits, now asking you, well, what religion are you? And they can exclude you from opening an account depending on your belief system. So every day it's like we find a new use case for Bitcoin. And think about the population of India. One by one, every week it is now. There's different countries that are just upsetting their population. And we really have seen mass protests across India because of these new regulations, the Citizen Amendment Act that they're now proposing. I think this is people that weren't born in India before 2014, may not get their citizenship there. So if we've got any Indian followers, I'd love to know what you guys think about all this in the comments below. Iran have joined the Brics Nations recently. So Brazil, Russia, India, China, South America, coming out and saying that we need to issue our own payment system and get away from the US and SWIFT. We've now got Iran coming out and saying that we need a Muslim cryptocurrency to turn away from the US dollar. So the Middle East now looking to move away from that world reserve currency that is somewhat backed by oil, that relationship America have with Saudi Arabia. Now, US lawmakers also came out this week and asked the IRS to clarify crypto tax, airdrops and forks. So this is something that's been very murky. There's 100 forks of Bitcoin these days if you want to go and look at who's actually forked the code base. So where do you draw the line and whose responsibility is it? Where do you even get the prices from those forks from? All that needs to be clarified, and it's very similar in Australia where you can't actually reasonably expect people to manage the 100 forks of Bitcoin. New draft bill is also aiming to further classify the different crypto assets. At the moment, they're trying to put these square pegs through round holes, but if we have these three new definitions, this may help crypto commodities versus currencies versus security tokens. And yes, I think the US, it's really time that they get their act together. The SEC are also looking to change accreditation for those who are counted as sophisticated investors. So at the moment, it all goes on your net wealth, and they're looking to change that to more of a education. So why should someone that's rich and doesn't understand crypto have more rights than someone that's tech savvy, understands crypto, but doesn't have money? In the future, hopefully, if you understand what you're investing in, you'll be allowed to invest in it. And finally, we've got Fidelity predicting that their solutions will be white labeled in the future. So Coinbase Custody, BitGo, the people that are doing it really well, they're actually going to white source their technology, have really good standards, and allow others to come in as trusted custodians. And that makes insurance and custody, that process, just be able to grow so much quicker than people having to do that research themselves. Now, if you are in the game of looking after your own assets, be sure to contact New Brighton Capital. They'll be big supporters of Nuggets News and helping you guys get gold and crypto in your self-managed super. If you're not sure if you can do a self-managed super, take advantage of that free consultation with Mike and the team. And I guess just a big thank you for all the support that they have given us and hundreds of you guys that have taken them up on that this year. So as we dive into the crypto news, I want to start off with Binance investing tens of millions of dollars in FTX. So why would one exchange invest in another? Well, I think it's because of FTX just being really leaders in the products they've developed. Now, back in July, we did a write-up and research for our members. This was the first and only ICO we invested in this year. I think that first round was 80 cents or $1 if you missed that cutoff date. Either way, it's trading at over $2 now. So I know plenty of you have made some great profits on FTX and that FTT token. You have a pause of the video and read up my write-up that members got a few months ago if you like. And I've done a tutorial on how to use that exchange as well and the fantastic products they offer like the Move contract where you can trade volatility. And I might do another tutorial on that going forward. They've just got so many good indexes which no other exchange have. And I think Binance know that. I think that's why they've invested and partnered up with them. Now, Binance were also in the news this week for freezing a customer's account after they thought that they were using CoinJoin. So CoinJoin is a privacy-focused technology. Now, Binance sort of come out and said, well, you know, it's kind of part of what we do. We've got to monitor and flag suspicious transactions. So that user actually did get their coins back. But either way, CZ was saying, you know, use privacy coins if you want to avoid that in some way. So he kind of said that in a bit of a more cryptic method. But yeah, if you are worried about all that stuff, then I guess you can use privacy coins, but not your keys, not your coins. So if you have your coins in an exchange, you know, and you're worried about withdrawing them, you've got to have these coins in your ledger in your own custody when you need to send it. So speaking of Monero and privacy coins, lead dev Fluffy Pony is stepping down. He's been saying he's going to be doing this for a while. And I really think this is that pressure that privacy coins are under the microscope these days. That he doesn't want to be seen to be the face of Monero because privacy is the biggest battle for crypto going forward against governments. Now, another fantastic privacy project is Orchid. So this got listed on Coinbase this week. It's actually down from the ICO price and those VC investors are underwater. But this protocol in general, I think it is interesting. A decentralized VPN. VPNs are very important these days. I believe all of you should be using it. So a protocol I might cover in the future. Now, speaking of privacy, we did have Edward Snowden this week losing that case. So the judge ruled in favor of the government, saying that they are entitled to proceeds from, you know, different speeches and his book and whatnot. So it seems like they were trying to drag him through the mud. I don't think he's too fussed either way. You know, I think the majority of us love Edward Snowden for what he did, but I know some people do think it wasn't the right thing to do. Either way, let us know down in the comments below. So over to blockchain.com, where they have launched a pound sterling payments gateway. And I think this year has been a year of opening up all those gateways. So whether it's Bitfinex now enabling credit card and debit card purchases with crypto. We've got things like Square, that cash app. Binance coming through Australia. You can buy crypto with cash over the counter now at news agencies. There are just so many on-ramps these days, and that next bull market is going to be so easy for, the herd to pile into crypto. Now, a few years back, Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong actually filed this patent to send Bitcoin via email, and he's won that patent. So very cool stuff. We want sending Bitcoin to be as easy as sending an email that your grandma can do going forward as well. Now, this month we launched a new episode. So those of you that caught that, it was very popular, our monthly mining update. We're going to be going over hash rate, profitability, what coins to mine, the different types of coins you can mine, the latest tech and political developments that are affecting the mining industry. So first episode was out this week. Be sure to check that out if you haven't, and let us know what you want us covering in that mining update each month as well. Now, mining chip manufacturer AMD has joined Blockchain Game Alliance, partnering with marketplace creators. So these guys have got a huge user base already. We know NVIDIA have gone, pretty heavy in crypto. We've got the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance and other projects working with these GPU chip manufacturing for proof of stake going forward, and these cards that are supporting all those crypto networks. So gaming, the graphics cards, this is all tying together. This space and gaming is a sector I'm very bullish on in 2020 as well. Power Ledger, they seem to be in the news every week with these positive announcements. I know that's not really being reflected in price like a lot of projects, but Western Australia property developer pushing for smarter tech and integrating the Power Ledger system into a Midland timber mixed use development. So awesome to see those guys continuing to expand. Cardano fans out there are happy that Shelley testnet has kicked off, and we've seen more than 5 billion ADA staked. So this is one of the token mechanics that I really like. Anything that locks up supply and secures the blockchain, the system, Ethereum moving to proof of stake, locking up ETH in DeFi, those sort of lockups are really great. And I think staking rewards, another big theme to watch out for 2020. Disney have won this case against Justin Sun trying to trademark the term Tron. So most of you will probably seen or be familiar with the Tron movies. Justin Sun did try to patent that term, and unfortunately he hasn't got his way. Money can't buy everything. This week I had Flash FX on, the little Aussie company that are actually using XRP tokens. So obviously I haven't been a big believer in the token use case. I do believe the tech is going to be used. It's already been used to a large degree, but it was interesting. Check out that interview if you want to know the thoughts on this company, what they've liked and disliked about that system so far. Now, Ripple were in the news, again, causing a stir. They've raised $200 million selling equity. So this year they've sold hundreds of billions of dollars of XRP tokens into the market, into retail investors and into some businesses. They've got billions of dollars. Why do they need another 200 million? And why is this firm not happy to buy XRP tokens? Why do they want to stake in the company equity instead? So again, I'm not going to go into that too much. I know it's really going to divide you guys in the comments, everything that happens with XRP. Block One, a similar story. They've raised billions of dollars and they're actually going to be putting this to work. So I like the fact that they're going to be giving out $50,000 grants to some of the most promising EOS projects. That's what they should be doing. That's what we want to see. Recently, they tried to recoup, $150 million that they spent when they were sitting on a cash pile of $4 billion. That doesn't make sense to me. Get that money out to the most promising projects. In terms of Ethereum and DeFi, Kyber is one of the projects that we've done a report on recently. If you get our premium research catalyst, a major upgrade coming. I'll read you guys to leave that. But again, Kyber looking to integrate staking and other mechanics to really give more value to the Kyber network crystal holders. The Maker Foundation have received a $27 million investment from Dragonfly Capital and Paradigm. So we know we're onto our winners when they're trying to expand into China, get that DeFi stuff happening all throughout Asia. A project that I love and continues to do great things. Another little project which popped up this week was streaming of your wages, and that's Sablia. So if you've got your MetaMask account, you can log in and you can send someone money to their Ethereum address or their Ethereum name service if you've registered your name with the Ethereum name service there. So streaming your wages, who cares about getting paid weekly when we can get that streamed, every dollar, every minute or whatnot. Really cool stuff. Vitalik has spoken about this, and this is now actually happening. Another Lego piece in the DeFi world that's going to click together with everything else that is happening in the DeFi space. Ernst & Young have open sourced their tech, saying that the private nature of what they're doing on Ethereum not only protects that data, but it's actually a massive scaling utility as well. So I think somewhere between 20 and 400 in terms of the throughput that is increasing their transactions by batching them all together. So awesome stuff. Scaling is slowly coming together. ZK Snarks are very, very capable of increasing transactions on Ethereum by 500 fold from what they currently are. Ethereum Foundation, this was mentioned last week as well. Selling $100 million. When you look at the figures and the market cap, guys, I think people were a little bit more calm about it this week. In scheme of things, this was less than 0.1% of all Ethereum. And people are carrying on like they dumped their entire bags on the market, but not the case there at all. Another piece of news we had from Tornado Cash, the mixer this week, was that they've upgraded. So I did a tutorial when this was still in beta, but the contracts have now been audited. They've added DAI as well as increased the amount of Ethereum that you can mix and now make private. So if you want to make your Ethereum private, check out that tutorial I did on how to use the Tornado Cash mixer. Now, the term Bitcoin halving is slowly creeping up. So it does feel like markets are a little bit quiet and dead at the moment. But if we have a look in 2016, how that search term absolutely jumped, we want to make a new high. We want to pass that level of Google searches and interest in the halving, because we're starting to build a bit of momentum, but we want people aware of what's happening. And I think that's going to gather a bit of excitement and momentum as we head into May 2020, particularly if we've formed a bit of a bottom now and we're heading sideways into accumulation phase. Now, we have had a lot of red weeks lately. It's been a bit of a bear market, a bloodbath, but I think it's pretty clear now from Chainalysis and all these reports that Plus Token have been dumping large amounts of Bitcoin and possibly more Ethereum to come as well from what we've seen. But I think that does explain why this correction has gone lower and longer than maybe what we were all expecting. Another coin that is in the news for the wrong reasons is Hex. So this is one that I avoided. I'm happy to have Richard Hart on the channel and ask some hard questions if you guys want that. I think he's done a lot of interviews lately with people that don't really understand how this works or what's going on, and it doesn't make for a good interview. But Hex is almost trading at zero. It got down to 1 Satoshi. They've collected millions of dollars in ETH, and this thing just has a tiny market cap. So who's got all that ETH? Again, that is the sort of thing I want to ask if you guys want to see Richard Hart on the channel. So we'll get into the technical analysis, but final week for you guys to get your $100 free Bitcoin. Over 200 of you have taken up that offer. Frequently asked questions are all answered there about how to get it. Make a few trades on eToro. Then you'll also get your 10% deposit credit from the eToro guys. And I send out these Bitcoin transactions every week or two. So I might take a bit of a holiday this week, guys. But that Bitcoin, if you've qualified, don't worry. It is coming your way. So link in the description below to get your $100 with eToro there. Now, in the technical analysis this week, I did a deep dive when Bitcoin bottomed. All the sentiment indicators I look at, technical analysis, fundamental analysis. That was a real deep dive, almost half an hour long. I suggest you guys check that one out if you haven't already. So much that I went over there, so I'm not going to spend too long looking at the TA today, other than to say that the Bitcoin dominance is actually trending higher after we made some lower highs here on the daily chart. These falling wedges that we've broken out of, is Bitcoin about to make a fresh high in terms of its dominance? And I think Ethereum is really struggling compared to what I would love to see it be doing when you consider how much progress DeFi has made recently. Now, this was the bullish case that I was hoping we could get this ascending triangle, but we didn't get through there. We collapsed, and this trade was one that we did get stopped out of. So what do you guys think? Is Ethereum and DeFi setting up for a big 2020? Why are so many of these alts that are doing good things still struggling against Bitcoin? Is that dominance going to send Bitcoin higher? And are we nearing the end of this big falling wedge that we've been in just about all year? And we're coming to that end of the correction, and we are going to have a very bright 2020 install. So if we have a look at that log chart just quickly to finish, Let's go down here, get rid of our Bollinger Bands, and we did meet that trend line going all the way back to 2015. So this is what we want to hold in the grand scheme of things over Christmas. But be sure to check out that deep dive I did, guys. For more information on anything we do, head over to nuggetsnews.com.au. I hope you guys all have an awesome break. And if we get enough news, I will do a video next week. Otherwise, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share this video around, and I'll talk to you again soon. Cheers.